Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular meeting of council on December 7th, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:30. And my apologies to our guests and delegations and fellow members of council that I can't be with you in person, but thanks to technology, we can still proceed with a regular meeting. So thank you. Moving on with the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, I'll move on to approval of previous minutes. So the minutes from our November 16th regular meeting of council. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have the resolution, please?
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on November 16th, 2023 be adopted as printed and circulated.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Serna moves, Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So we have a few presentations this evening. Welcome to everyone. We'll start with the delegation from the county. I believe we have Carolyn Cron and Dawn Shropshire from, as I said, from the county to discuss planning for growth. And I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. So we're here today to talk about the growth that is anticipated for the Elgin-St. Thomas region over the next several years. With the VW facility coming to St. Thomas, we certainly expect to see a ripple effect across the region. And Mayor Giguère was kind enough to share your draft strategic plan with us, and we see that you have been doing some planning for the growth that you would like to see in your community as well. And we'd like to learn more about the type of growth that you would like to see. So we see that you would like some responsible growth and have that come with consultation with the community. So let me just see if I can you. Perfect. Oh. There we go. So the PowerCo SE Gigafactory effects. So this is not just a factory. It's going to be a catalyst for economic change in the region. It's expected to create 3,000 direct jobs with as many as 30,000 indirect jobs as well, with all of the ancillary factories anticipated to locate around the region. So this will result in increased job competition and population growth across the region. And this will also have an impact to the communities in Elgin, but also in St. Thomas and London will be competing for these ancillary type industrial investments. And as these businesses come to our region, skilled labor competition will also intensify. So this influx of jobs will also attract a diverse range of people who are looking to live near these jobs. So it will be important to assess our workforce needs and invest in the training for the positions that will be available, not just with VW, but our existing businesses. So there will be competition, and our existing businesses may need some support getting the trained, skilled trades as well. And some of the things that we need to think about when planning for this growth is careful financial and land use planning. So this is important to support the demands of housing, business, both industrial and commercial, agriculture, and recreation. And some of the things that we also need to consider are infrastructure upgrades that may be necessary to accommodate for this population and business growth. Housing affordability and supply, transportation, education, healthcare, public safety, recreation, and other social services must be addressed as well if we're thinking about population and business growth. One important thing to consider whenever speaking to growth is aligning these developments in this growth with community priorities. are our communities prepared to welcome newcomers and immigrants? And we want to make sure that our communities remain safe and inclusive places where all residents can thrive. So community engagement plays a pivotal role in achieving this, making sure that developments align with what the community would like to see, and also that we are prepared to welcome newcomers that may come because of this growth. There are also some benefits to growth. Industrial growth can offer tax revenue, job creation, economic stimulation, and improved infrastructure. An increase in industrial tax revenue can support an increase in service levels required by the population growth. And this may also enhance property values and foster community vibrancy. So sustainable and well-planned growth, so that responsible growth is essential for long-term benefits. As we prepare for this development, there are some things that we would like to understand so that we can better support Malahide and the type of growth that you would like to see in your community. So would you like to attract new residents? Do you want to focus on attracting and growing commercial businesses? Do you want to attract and grow your industrial tax base? And I know Mayor Giguère also mentioned supporting innovation in agriculture. So what type of growth would you like to see in your community? And what incentives will be required to attract these investments? Is the proximity to PowerCo SE sufficient incentive, or will we need additional incentives to compete with our neighboring municipalities who would also like to see these investments? So I'm going to pause now for some brief discussion, and I'd be happy to hear your feedback. Some of the things that we would like to learn today is, what is the appetite in your community to welcome investment? How aggressively would you like to pursue growth? And in terms of incentives to attract businesses, how aggressive do you think we should be? And how welcoming will our communities be to newcomers? And what steps can we take to ensure inclusivity and a smooth transitions for any new residents moving into the area? And with that, I'd like to pass it back to you if you have any thoughts or comments.
Thank you, Carolyn, and I invite members of council and staff to chime in if you'd like to comment on any of those, and in light of certainly many of the discussions we've had around our own planning and the feedback we've received from the community.
Surveys, people are, speak this way. The feedback we got from the surveys, most people, I'd say, aren't against growth, but they want to make sure that our rural characteristics aren't trampled on the way there.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Whitner?
Yes, thank you. I think as far as growth, our strategic plan, yeah, they kind of want the rural character to stay, but growth, if it's in the proper areas, I think it'll be fine. And we just have to get those areas. We're a little bit short the growth areas, but I'm sure something can be done about that. And, you know, we're the housing thing. I mean, sure, we welcome new housing. It has to be planned. We have to have the services to support that. And that's a bit of a struggle too. So, but maybe with the province, there will be some help later on. We don't know that. So yeah, there is, you know, appetite for it, but our strategic plan was kind of interesting. It really wanted to keep this place the way it is a lot. So we have to be careful what we do and what we wish for, but certainly some new businesses would certainly be welcome. There's lots of places to put them at this point. So thank you.
So there are also some other things to consider as well when talking about growth, and there are some costs involved to this growth. And these costs come at the municipal level, at the provincial, federal level, the school boards, and private level as well. So at the municipal level, there are things to consider like water, wastewater, planning, roads, cultural services, emergency services, parks, recreation, and we could make that list longer as well. For school boards, we need to plan for and build new schools if there's an increase in population, and then also recruiting staff for those new schools. And the private sector will be working on housing development, commercial development, and industrial development. So economic development also has some costs with business attraction efforts and workforce development initiatives. So effective financial planning is crucial for sustainable growth. And there are various funding sources that you can explore for this growth. Some funding sources include property taxes, grants, debentures, development charges, and user fees. Other options are partnerships with other municipalities. So when thinking about things like water and wastewater, are there opportunities to partner with your neighboring municipalities on some of these projects? And then public-private partnerships are also another option. So we've been exploring different public-private options that may be available to our municipalities to build and finance and also operate this infrastructure such as water and wastewater. And then are there some expectations that we should have regarding financial support from the provincial and federal levels as well? They've invested a lot of money into PowerCo, and I'm sure they would like to see that succeed. So there may be some provincial or federal dollars to take advantage of there as well. So another opportunity for some feedback, and this goes around how much are you willing, or not just willing, how much can you invest to drive this growth forward? And where do you see opportunities for collaboration between the local municipalities, the county, and the city? And when might we find ourselves in competition? So when it comes to things like infrastructure, do you think it's feasible for us to make some shared investments in key areas?
Thank you, Carolyn. Once again, I'd like to open it up.
Push my button this time.
Listen.
When we were doing our strategic planning sessions, one of the things that Rob Flack brought up was thinking about it on a bigger scale for the wastewater. If Springfield needs wastewater, Elmer needs it, St. Thomas needs it, Belmont maybe, if it's, that sort of regional scale wastewater system is something that none of those municipalities can do on their own, but at the county level and getting funding through provincial and feds, you could make something like that work. Having 4 different wastewater mega project sort of things all at once, where it could be one if we had a lot of help with the funding, for regional size scale of factory like that, it makes sense to go with regional size infrastructure.
Right, thank you. So along with all of this growth, we don't want to overlook our existing businesses. They've been in our communities for many years. They've been the backbone of our communities, and we would like to support them and encourage their growth as well. So this growth may present opportunities and challenges for these businesses. So among the opportunities, they may get the opportunity to supply PowerCo SE, or with the population growth, there may be an increase in demand for their services and products as well. But there may also be some challenges with workforce demand. So they may need some support in workforce attraction and training with the skilled trades as well. So in November, at the beginning of the last month, we launched our business retention and expansion program. So the goal of this program is to meet with local businesses and have one-on-one interviews to learn about what their challenges and their opportunities are. And what we learn from these interviews will be used to inform an action plan that we will develop that will inform the county's economic development programs and also policies as well. So our goal is to meet with 70+ businesses in Elgin County, and we're well on our way to meeting that target. And if you are out and about in the community and you are meeting with any businesses that you think should speak with us, please refer them to us. And you can learn more about this program on our website, progressivebynature.com. And we do have a page all about our BRNE. So please feel free to share that information with local businesses. We would be happy to meet with them and learn about what they see as our challenges and opportunities, and also learn how we can better support them in our communities as well. And another project that we have been working on with our local municipalities is creating an investment attraction strategy or roadmap. So we did submit an application to FedDev for some funds to develop and implement this strategy. So the goal is to position Elgin County for industrial growth and attract new investment. So this project includes working with our local municipalities to clarify goals. And that's what we're starting today. We're starting that conversation, learning about the growth that you would like to see in your communities. We're working on our vacant land inventory. So where are the vacant industrial lands in Elgin? We're working on that master servicing study, a county-wide master servicing study, so we can understand the investments that need to be made in key infrastructure across the county. And then we can identify the parcels that are ready for development and any servicing gaps that may exist at those parcels. We're also reviewing our incentives. So currently we do have an incentives program, Elgin Incentives, that offers different incentives to local businesses, to existing and new businesses. And then we'll be working on streamlining planning processes, which Dawn is going to speak about a little bit more shortly, and then also workforce attraction and retention, and then creating a marketing and lead generation strategy. So we're not just going to be waiting for those businesses to come to us, but we'll be going out there and promoting Elgin County as a great place to live, work, and play. And with that, I'll leave you with these questions and you can think about them and provide some feedback now or later. You can feel free to reach out to me anytime. So what we would like to understand are your goals for residential growth, commercial expansion, and industrial development. How would you like to engage with your community? And you've done this already to assess its appetite for welcoming growth. What is your plan to support infrastructure development? How will you support the costs of this new infrastructure? And just a request that you champion our BR&E program. And then would you like to work with us as we develop and implement an investment attraction strategy for the region?
Thank you, Carolyn. Again, good food for thought. And are there any comments? Again, welcoming staff and all members of council to ask questions or comment. So did I see Dawn moving to the microphone?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Don Shropshire. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for the County of Elgin for about another 5 weeks, and then I get to pass the baton. But I'm happy to have a chance to talk to you tonight. Just a few things just to build on Carolyn's comments. Right now, with the investments that are being made around us, with both the PowerCo plant and the Amazon plant and so on, we're actually seeing that the county is really being almost pursued by growth. A lot of times you have to go hunting really hard to find it, but they're knocking on our doorstep. And I think the type of discussion that you've already started with your community is very important to help guide that and manage the growth. Because clearly, you know, as you talked about this evening and you've heard from your residents, you really want to make sure that we're maintaining the agricultural character of our community. Agriculture is the economic backbone of our economy, and we certainly don't want to do anything that's going to undermine that. We want to try and find a way to, whatever growth is going to happen is managed so that that's continues to be supported and it's integrated. So I think that's really important. And I'd say that you're probably farther ahead than most of the other communities in the county with having done your strategic plan, but I think that's really important. What I'm going to talk to you about for a few minutes is some of the planning initiative that will also help build on your strategic direction that you've heard from your residents and help us guide the future growth in a way that's going to be popular for you. There are a couple of things I just wanted to highlight. When I was reading the draft strategic plan, one of the other things I heard is there's also a keen interest in making sure that we're fiscally responsible. People wanting to make sure that our costs are kept low, or at least they're really managed. So we want to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. So with the growth, the other thing I just want to highlight is when you have increased growth or people investing in our community, which leads to increased assessment growth or a tax base, if that can be kept above inflation, that's the sweet spot for all of us having a chance to spread the tax burden for, you know, getting those services that we want, but less has to be paid by each individual taxpayer. So I think that's another thing, you know, welcoming some growth is going to be beneficial, not only to help, you know, as long as it's managed, maintain our character, but also we want to do it in a way that we're going to have less of a tax burden on all of us. And I think that's really important for this community based on what feedback you've had. Carolyn also talked about some cost issues with respect to the investments. I saw some nodding of some heads when she started talking about the costs that would have to be made or the investments that would have to be made in order to be able to welcome new residential or commercial growth. One of the other things we're exploring, both in the studies that we've had, but also in reaching out to some other companies, is are there models that we can use that do not require us to go out and borrow a bunch of money? Because that's one of the things too, is if you go out and you say, well, I need a $20 million investment to put in a new water sanitation, that's not very attractive, right? Like nobody wants to carry a bunch of debt. So there are models, and I'll just use hydro because I think that's probably the one that people might know best. When they have a big investment in new hydro, they take the cost of the capital, the cost to actually build the infrastructure, and then they also take a look at their transmission costs, and then they work out a rate structure that's going to be able to recover both their capital and also their input and their the cost of the hydro. So there are companies that are prepared to do that for water and wastewater as well. So as we're going through and looking at these things, we're going to try and provide all local municipalities in the county with some options that you can choose what's going to make most sense for you. Because you don't want to be in a position where the growth is here and you want a certain amount of it, and then you're saying, well, I can't spend that money for 20 years. We need to find other ways that in the next 5 years to take advantage of the growth. So let me talk to you for a few minutes now just about planning services. So planning services, we have had very modest growth across the county for years. And what we're trying to do now is to say, what type of planning do we have to put in place to take advantage of some of these opportunities, but to do in a way that's going to capture all that stuff we've talked about for the last, 15 minutes or so. So I received some feedback from Nathan and his colleagues across the county. And the message was, let's go out and look for some models that we think might work for us in a way that's going to be cost effective. And I saw in your plan as well as this community is promoting the use of shared services in a way that's going to make it cost effective. So this is really a model like that. And it to be really clear, none of the information we've shared tonight requires a decision right now. We're trying to share information that's going to help give you some things to think about, whether it's planning or the economic development investments. And then we're hoping you're going to come back and tell us more clearly where you'd like to see the county move to support your community. So we had, there were 3 local communities or counties that have a model in planning services that is a shared service. So Middlesex, Oxford, and Huron County all have excellent reputations. And what they've done is they've centralized their planning services at the county level. And then the county would assign staff. It's basically they'd have, well, we'll use Malahide as an example. They'd have them as a client. So they'd be housed here, several days per week. This would be their primary client. You get to know them. They work closely with your staff, and there's no expectation that they're going to be sort of running in and out. You get to know them and they get to know you, and there's a support. But having them in a larger group of planners at the county level has several advantages, and that's what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. Giving you an opportunity to also size the number of planners that you need over time. Sometimes you might only need half a planner a year. Sometimes you might need 2, depending on the growth. We can move people around to make sure that it's sized appropriately. So you're only paying for what you need, not for some other sort of ups and downs in the system. So planners would have their offices in the community to which they're assigned. Local municipalities, what I'm hearing also from all of those 3 counties is that they also have a lot of people that also want to work from home. And if we can get good planners, then that means that, 1 or 2 days a week, they have the opportunity to work from home if they're not working here. There's some flexibility that I think we can use to attract some good people. So I think that's one of the other elements. The other thing in terms of paying for the service, all 3 of these counties use the county levy system as a way to pay for it. It's not on the municipal tax base. So the same taxpayers putting money out of their pocket, that's not changed, but there is that sort of harmonizing of the cost. The staff assignments, there's different approaches that are being used in the 3 counties. Some of them rotate some of the planners every couple of years. when you have a planner coming in, if they're always working in Malahide, for example, I would guess that the majority, in fact, I'm going to do a little bit more than guessing because I know the answer, but the majority of the planning services you'd have would be farmers that are, severing properties, or somebody wants to, sever that. They maintain a property for their household, and then the other land is going to be, often transferred to somebody else that's going to have a larger farm to manage. In the long in the long term, that's not very good for the development of a planner. When they first get out, they want to have that experience for sure, but having a variety of experiences helps the planner want to stay with you and build a career with you. So having some variety has also been helpful in that regard. The other thing that happens when you can have more planners is they can also get involved in more specialized functions. So you have things like official plan development. Everybody has to do that. There's also statutory plans or zoning, site plan approvals. If you have opportunities to have more than one planner, they can split some of that responsibility and develop some of those more specialized skills. So you get a richer combination of skill sets and experience. And that's been something that everybody has championed as one of the benefits of having this model. Each of the groups, Oxford, they've done some things where they have their moving people around on a fairly regular basis to get the different experiences. Middlesex tends to have people stay fairly close to home. One of the other interesting things that Middlesex did, beg your pardon, I'm trigger happy here with my finger on the button, my apologies. Middlesex County, one of the unique things that they did was they sold a parcel of land, and they had about, I think it was around $10 million, and they put that in a growth fund, and that growth fund was then loaned out, interest-free loans to the local municipalities, so that when they had a big investment, let's just say you had a residential investment, somebody wanted to come in and build a couple of hundred homes, but you need to put in a water line to be able to support that. Well, if you could get an interest-free loan from a growth fund, it means you're going to save a lot of money in the longer run, where you're not going to have to pay interest rates. So we're looking right now at trying to develop a growth fund, and there's a couple of ideas that are going to likely be shared with county council and local councils in the new year. But we're trying to find some way to make it affordable for people in a way that's shared. Huron County, they're probably the most mature of the models, I'd say. They've been doing this for quite some time, and they've expanded beyond some of the traditional planning. So they've done things like they got somebody that can deal with climate change protection. They've got people that are dealing with forestry management. So they're all parts of planning services, but there's things that people don't often get to because they're just too busy doing the day-to-day things like the severances. So there is some benefits by going down this road, depending on what the community's needs are. So it's you can tailor it. All three of the counties also used an approach where they would develop a close working relationship with the schools that train planners, and then they'd use more senior planners to mentor them or to help develop their skill sets in the longer term. And they found that people stay there in the community for a longer period of time. And I can tell you, in today's job market, where you're really having a hard time recruiting talented staff, that's a big benefit. So it saves us money in the long run. So some additional considerations. We do have an existing planner right now. We've hired a fellow at the county. He works for a private company. He's very familiar with all these areas. We consulted Paul Hicks as well. He was very much encouraging us to explore one of these models. This is a guy that we hired to do planning for us, and he said, I'll be with you as long as you need me, but in the longer term, this is a more cost-effective model for you. This is where I recommend you look. So he's been very professional about the thing, but he was also supporting this. We do have some other considerations. The city of St. Thomas shares a planning service with Central Elgin. So they might be in a position where they might not want to move to this service. Maybe not ever, but maybe in a year or two. The point of this one is it's flexible. Like if you decided that you're really happy with your current planning services, there's no requirement to move to it. But if you can see some advantages, either moving towards this all or in part, that's an available service for you. And I think it aligns with your planning, your strategic planning, where you say, can you look at a shared service in a way to get us a better bang for our buck? So with this one, we are putting together a draft plan for county council's consideration. We'll be moving that into 2024. There are some local municipalities, Dutton Dunwich is an example, that have said, our planner is going to retire this year. We need someone right now. get it up and running as quickly as you can. So there's going to be some that'll jump on board. It's going to take us some time in 2024 to get people hired up and move over to that. But that's, we are expecting by 3 or 4 months into the new year, we'll have some basic planning services, and we'll grow that over the course of the year, depending on what the feedback is from local communities. So with that, we're happy to entertain any questions, but as I say, this is not meant to be a decide everything tonight. This is really meant to share some information which gives you some more things to think about. And we're hoping that you're going to come back to us with additional questions or thoughts or directions so that we have some things to think about, some things to do. But I would be happy to entertain any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Don. Any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Widner?
Thank you, Mayor. That was a really good report, Don, and there's a lot to think about. One thing I'm a little frustrated with, we need to have better information shared between the province and the feds and the county, because it seems like right now it's just, we get told and no one else knows, and that's frustrating, but we can maybe work on that. And as far as the growth, I feel we have to be very careful and intentional, because there's a lot of unknown out there right now. It's a lot of rah, we need all these homes, but let's make sure this is gonna fall in the way we hope it's gonna fall in, because we have to do it once and do it right. So thank you very much for your report, and thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Yes, I'm not exactly sure how long we've been looking for a planner here in Malahide, but we were trying to share one with BAM, and the recruitment has just gone nowhere. So if the county is going to be doing this, I think it sounds fantastic. And I don't want to speak for all the council, but I think we'd probably hop right on some of the stuff that's been happening, going through consultants and whatnot. It doesn't seem to have much local control over what's happening, and we aren't necessarily their biggest client or the ones that are at the top of the list to get stuff done. I'm sure Aber out at BDR can attest to that one. So if there's any way that we could get some planners that we can use instead of constantly going to consultants, I think it would be fantastic for cost effectiveness and for getting stuff done.
You for that? CLDS, did you want to comment further?
Yes, thank you, Don and Carolyn. I think economic development and planning are tied together, and certainly as we anticipate this growth, I think the main thing is ensuring we preserve our rural character, but at the same time ensuring that we remain competitive. And there's a lot of information out there, even from the planning side, where it ties to economic development. And I was surprised looking at the on-farm diversified uses, for example, and ensuring that we have that flexibility, for instance, in our zoning that allows businesses to figure out innovative and entrepreneurial ideas and able to progress in that means. So I can see an opportunity to merge that growth by also maintaining a rural character. And I'm quite excited with all of this coming together as we anticipate growth coming at a very quick pace. And overall, just ensuring that we do remain competitive with the remaining municipalities in Elgin County. I know from the development services side, having the opportunity to meet with some of the local businesses, they're frustrated with a bit of the red tape that they see. And they want to really see the value for money when it comes to the development services. So that's something that I'd certainly like to focus on, in whichever model we get for planning, to ensure that the customer service stays on top, and that we're really able to show our businesses that it is worth the investment at the end of the day.
Great. Thank you for the comments.
Any further questions or comments? If not, I want to thank Carolyn and Don for the presentations. As you mentioned, this is very timely for us as we're just completing consultation with the community, and we heard it loud and clear that it makes sense to partner And we want to have the conversations that will lead to those effective partnerships. So it's great to hear that the county is ready for those conversations as well. So that's a perfect alignment. So if there are no further questions, Clerk Adams will go ahead with the resolution.
That the presentation of Carolyn Cron and Don Shropshire of the County of Elgin regarding planning for growth be received for information.
I have a mover and seconder. Councillor Wilson moves, Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, it's almost like we planned it that way. We have another presentation that I think will hint to some economic development and growth that can perfectly align with keeping a rural character. So do we have Mr. Lensing to present the Rural Power Resiliency Project?
I'm going to talk about a complicated power plant and I can't get the mic on. It figures. I'm going to share my screen here, hopefully. Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me on the agenda. I'm here to talk about the Walker Dairy Rural Power Resiliency Project. And yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better warm-up introduction in terms of talking about growth and talking about the needs that go along with growth. So my name is Matt Lensink, and I am the Chief Executive Officer and owner of a small engineering firm called CEM Engineering. We're based in Niagara. We have 3 offices across Canada. We're family owned, family run, and we feel your pain as it relates to filling vacancies with good people. We have lots of work and lots of vacancies, and it's very, very hard. So we are. I will explain in a minute why we are involved in this project. We're involved as the developer and the designer, and we're developing the project with the Walkers. So I will give some context first. So this project is intending to respond to a request for proposal from the Independent Electricity System Operator, so the IESO. And they really have 2 job functions. Their job is to make sure the lights are on today and make sure the lights are on 20 years from now. And the exercise we're talking about today is more about putting in infrastructure to have the lights on as the province grows and as the electrical load in the province changes. Some very, very quick stats. We have about 38,000 megawatts of power connected in Ontario. We have peaks in the province of 27,000 in the summer and 25,000 in the winter. IESO serves over 5 million consumers. But what's not shown here is how the load will change and will grow. So we heard about PowerCo, and there are many other facilities, the one in Windsor and others that will increase the load that's required. And then PowerCo is going to build batteries for electric vehicles that will also increase the load and change the load in terms of its intermittency. And so the old days of running nuclear and hydro, while they're very important, the load in the province is going to be much more dynamic. The IESO sees that, and they're starting to plan for that. And so that's what this program that they're running is intended to respond to. So the program is called LT1, not very creative naming. It stands for long-term one. So it's a procurement of long-term capacity. They're looking to procure over 4,000 megawatts of capacity, meaning power that can respond when it's needed. So not like the feed-in tariff program where they were procuring power when the sun shines or when the wind blows, or not like nuclear and hydro where there's power all the time. This is a procurement of power that can respond when the IESO and when the province needs the power. And so they're procuring it in a couple stages. They ran a couple stages last year, and this is kind of the final and the biggest stage that we're a part of right now, this long-term procurement. And they're procuring two types of technologies. One is energy storage. So think, the batteries that are going to be made by PowerCo in a much bigger version. Think lots and lots of those batteries. That's what's called storage. So because they're storing energy. And then the other procurement, because they realize that the energy storage in the batteries has its limits in terms of its ability to respond to load changes. They're also procuring what they call non-energy storage, which will likely be natural gas or other gas fuel sources. And so they're trying to procure in this current framework, you can see it on the bottom of the table there, about 1,600 megawatts of energy storage and another 900 megawatts of non-energy storage or gas-fired generation. So the schedule has been, they ran a pre-qualification process, and that gets back to my point about why am I up here. They ran a pre-qualification process to kind of vet out certain developers who they knew could bring projects to the finish line. And so we were successful in that pre-qualification process. And we've been looking at where are good facilities and good opportunities to develop projects. And so then we had to submit our list of up to 10 projects into what they call a deliverability test. And that's at the risk of getting too technical. Basically, they wanted to make sure that if you put a project here, could it actually connect to the electrical infrastructure and could it actually generate? So this particular project passed that test in September, late September. And we are gearing up and we're feeling the pressure a little bit. We're gearing up for next Tuesday when the bids are due. So we're very grateful that this meeting is happening when it is, because bids are made stronger if they have the support of the local municipal council. And so we're submitting our bid Tuesday, and we hope to hear in the second quarter of 2024. So that's the schedule of events, and that's the program that is driving this project and others like it. Some high level details. So the project name is the Walker Dairy Rural Power Resiliency Project. Its capacity is just under 5 megawatts of power, so just under 5,000 kilowatts. The technology is non-energy storage, so it's not the batteries, it's non-energy storage, reciprocating engine. So the requirement is that these projects must be able to run for at a minimum 8 hours, up to 16 hours when called upon. So that's the requirement for this technology. Here's a map of the site, and you see it there. So that's one of the Walker farms that you can see there. That's where we're proposing, and I'll show some more detail in a minute. The project will feature two engines, two 2.5 megawatt engine gensets, and they will be in purpose-built enclosures. So to give you a picture, those green enclosures, it's like a large shipping container with a bunch of equipment on the outside that gets bolted on when it shows up at site. So, and they will have sound attenuation, so there will be mufflers, and there will be noise canceling panels on the enclosure to keep the noise down. Probably some kind of concrete or pile foundation, very simple foundation. The engines will utilize natural gas or biogas from the co-located biogas facility that's there already. And the electricity that's generated will be exported onto the local Hydro One. HONE stands for Hydro One Networks, Inc. Sorry, us engineers are prone to acronyms. Sorry about that. But the local Hydro One grid at 27,000 volts on the M2 feeder, which comes out of the Aylmer TS. And so that will have to be extended as part of the project. So it'll be extended along the highway there into the farm as part of the project. So here's kind of a Google Maps version. At the top, this is a bit of an outdated version of Google Maps, but that's where the biogas facility is that's making renewable natural gas right now. And you'll see on the next screen, we're intending just to co-locate in and amongst the existing structures of that project. And we will likely piggyback the existing line and then connect at the highway there to the Hydro One facility. Here's a bit of a zoom in so you can see most of these boxes are existing part of the biogas facility, and we're going to tuck these two containers right in here. There's some auxiliary equipment But it's really a small footprint. It's 40 feet by about 120 feet that's needed for this project. So the engines are expected to operate about 1,500 to 2,000 hours a year, and this will likely decrease over time. It all depends on the power price and when the IESO needs it. So the operating rhythm will be you every day the project will say to the IESO, I have this much power available at this price, and then every day the IESO will say, okay, we need you tomorrow or we don't need you tomorrow, just based on what they know about weather and load. And so they will be dispatched by a signal from the IESO. We will be governed by Ministry of Environment air standards and noise standards. So that'll require a ministry approval process. And these engines, you can see kind of inside the container there in the picture, they will have automatic fire detection and fire suppression systems already pre-built when they show up at site. Here's a high-level schedule. I mentioned some of these milestones already. The deliverability test we're submitting now to the IESO. We expect spring of 2024 when the contracts will be released. And then in general terms, we're planning kind of a conservative 2-year schedule to do the engineering, do the permitting, do the procurement of the equipment that we're buying, do the installation, and we're targeting the spring of 2026 to be online, providing power when it's needed. Some of the benefits, this will, bring increased power quality to the area, avoid any power concerns, that are in the area. The equipment that's been chosen for this project will have a lower emissions profile than some of the other larger gas turbine projects that are also trying to participate. They're just more efficient in converting fuel to electricity. And certainly from a construction and operation perspective, we'll have a chance to drive some local jobs, particularly during the construction phase when we're building at site. So we have, as I mentioned, some work we've done to date. We've done the test of can we actually deliver the power. We've had an online community engagement meeting, which is a requirement as part of the program. There wasn't a lot of attendance, but the attendance that we did have was positive, and we've published the meetings on our website as is required. And so really our request today on behalf of the project is that we're requesting a municipal council support resolution in support of this project, in support of the bid. Certainly, this doesn't preclude all the other permitting requirements that the municipality would have, but this support now ahead of the bid provides additional points in terms of the ranking of projects that they will get, and so this will improve the chances of the project in the RFP process. So that's kind of a summary of the project and a summary of the ask. So I'm certainly open to questions or comments.
Thank you for that. And I'll open it up for comments and questions. Councillor Wilson.
Do you have any of these units operating?
Yes, in different kind of operating regimes, but as an example, we were involved, and this is getting close to 10 years ago, IGPC, the ethanol plant, they have one of these, slightly larger, just one of them, although maybe they've put in a second one, but for sure they have one operating there. And there are many of these. There's at the 3M plant in London, for example, there's a very similar sized engine. So yeah, there's many of these, very common.
What is 3M operating off of?
Natural gas.
Natural gas, okay. And just sort of, I guess, way bigger picture, the COP meetings that are going on right now. They've finally come to worldwide agreement that methane is a problem. So capturing it and turning it into electricity, it's sort of a win-win-win for what's coming up. And if things go well, we might be using this as a blueprint for how to do it at a lot of other locations in the township. Because if this is a viable thing to capture the methane instead of it just being released into the air, and you can green energy and hydro out of it, it seems like a win-win-win.
Councillor Leach.
This is really exciting technology, and Walker Dairy is cutting edge in so many ways. I have a couple of questions. One is, so the bid is not a guarantee that this project will proceed?
Yes, that's correct. So we will submit a bid, and they will, as will others, we think. And they are intending to get to 900 megawatts, and so they have a prescribed ranking process where they look at the bid. It's like many bids, you're bidding a price, and then they will look at some of the priority points that are available, including municipal council support, and then they have a process of ranking and assessing the bids, and then depending on where we fall in that ranking, if we are within their threshold, then they will offer a contract, but it's not a guarantee, right?
And is there the opportunity to proceed with this project at a later date if the IESO decides they want to increase capacity?
You mean not if they didn't offer it?
If this time is not successful, will there be other opportunities?
Yeah, so as one of the first slides talked about, they have this 4,000 megawatt target. In what we're hearing from the ISO, there is more procurements, and actually the bids are due on the 12th of December. On the 13th of December, they're having an initial engagement session on what they're calling LT2, which will have maybe a bit of a different design, but yeah, there's definitely more opportunities for these types of projects coming. Yeah.
Okay. And is there any special fire training that our municipal fire service will require?
No special training, but certainly, awareness is always important. So, happy to have them out and kind of point out, the key fire detection and suppression pieces of the system, and certainly have a discussion with the individuals who, service and maintain and operate, and have, create an awareness so that, God forbid anything did happen, they wouldn't be coming in blind. So, but nothing unique, no.
Thank you.
Thank you for those. Any further comments or questions? I encourage comments from staff as well. I don't know if Mr. Godby, you have any comments, or Deputy Mayor Widner? Did I see your hand?
Sure, does Mr. Godby have his up? Okay, you go first then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. From a staff perspective, we have done a preliminary review of a site plan application for this. Realistically, there's no significant concerns from us from a public works perspective. There's going to be generally minimal impact on any of the local infrastructure outside of the hydro infrastructure. So from our perspective, there are no concerns at this time.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Widner?
Yes, thank you. I could certainly support this project. It's a great project. It really benefits the environment. Makes excellent use of a product that's just going up in the air anyway. So I think it's a great thing, and it may be on a lot more farms that this can get up and running into satisfaction. So good for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? And once again, I think that's such a great example of the kind of development, growth, and economic activity and innovation that we want to encourage. So thank you for all who are involved. So I believe if there are no further comments for now, we will receive the presentation, and further on the agenda, we can consider an actual resolution for the endorsement. So we have the resolution to receive the presentation for now, Clerk Evans.
That the presentation from Matt Lenzink of CEM Engineering regarding the Walker Dairy Rural Power Resiliency Project request for resolution to support IESO energy proposal be received for information.
We have a mover and seconder. I have a choice of hands. Councillor Glinski move, Councillor Cerna second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, and thank you again for the presentation. Next on the agenda, we have a public meeting. This one is for zoning bylaw amendment application and consent application. Mr. Steele, just.
So we'll do the resolution to go into the public meeting so that the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of Blake Bennett and Brenda Lee Coleman relating to the property located at concession 7, part of lot 13, and known municipally as 15217 Imperial Road be called to order at 8:24 PM.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Leach moves, Counselor Wilson seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. So thank you for that. So this is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to allow any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment relating to concession 7, part of lot 13, and known municipally as 15 to 17 Imperial Road. So Clerk Adams, can you tell us what method of notice was used and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. The public meeting was advertised in the Umber Express for 2 consecutive weeks on November 22nd and the 29th. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. So Mr. Steele, you are with us. Can you provide an overview of the application and tell us if there have been any comments received?
Certainly, thank you, Madam Mayor. Before council tonight is a zoning bylaw amendment that was required as part of a condition as included as part of the consent application that was previously approved by Land Division Committee. The consent application proposed a farm severance, which severed a 28-hectare lot from a retained 48-hectare lot. The lands are currently zoned large lot agricultural A3 under the township zoning bylaw, which requires a minimum lot area of 40 hectares. And since the proposed severed lot is a size of 28 hectares, it is required to rezone to the general agricultural A1 zone, which would have a minimum lot area that would be compliant with the proposed lot. Staff have reviewed the application and have no concerns, and no public comments have been received in advance of the public meeting. And so staff recommend that the application be approved. That concludes my presentation. We have any questions from members of council.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Just before we go to question members, council, Clerk Adams, have you received any additional written submissions on the proposal?
No, we have not.
And is there anyone attending in person or on the Zoom call wishing to speak to the application?
Yes, Mayor Giguère, there is a property owner here that would like to make comment.
Please go ahead.
Actually, my name is Stuart Finlater. I'm a planner and I'm representing the Bennetts on this application. So I have reviewed Mr. Steele's report and I agree with his recommendation. This was a consent that was granted back in June by the Land Division Committee, and this was a condition of that severance. So I would simply ask the council to approve the rezoning application as applied for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member of council have any questions? Not seeing any. So everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard, and if there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of the proposed bylaw amendment should contact the clerk. If there's no further discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment and consideration of the planner's report with the following.
Hello?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mayor Giguère, when the agent spoke, I think you misinterpreted that was the person in attendance, but there is actually someone in the council chambers that just has a few questions.
Oh, please, thank you, and go ahead.
Okay. We are south part, the current south part of lot 13, concession 7. And we are current, as I understand, when we bought it, we are zoned M1, which would make us one of those little industrial properties that aren't being used industrially. And over the years, we've been thinking that sometime, me particularly, would like to have a smaller property in St. Thomas where there's a piece of a bus stop and all that other wonderful stuff. So our concern is mostly, one, that our property isn't going to lose any of its value, any of its zoning value. Because whenever we talk to real estate agents, they just want to sell it as a residential, not an industrial. And I did talk to the lady before she left, and she gave me a thing for industrial. And the other concern that we had was that when we bought the property, there were liens on it from the north section that did not belong on it, and we had to get them cleared before we could buy it. And we don't want, we're just concerned about the possibility of that happening when we try to sell it also. Okay, so that's all. That's not saying anything about we don't want you to do it, just we're not sure how it affects us. That's all. Okay.
Thank you for that. So I'll go back then to any questions from members of council. Still seeing none. So I'll proceed to state again that everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard, and if there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of the proposed bylaw amendment should contact the clerk. And if there's no further discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment and consideration of the planner's report with the following resolution. Clerk Annam.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of Blake Bennett and Brenda Lee Coleman relating to the property located at concession 7, part of lot 13 and known municipally as 15217 Imperial Road be adjourned at 8:31 p.m.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Whitner moves. Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? That's carried.
That report number DS 2262 entitled Application for Zoning Bylaw Amendment of Blake Bennett and Brenda Lee Coleman be received, and that the application for zoning bylaw amendment of Blake Bennett and Brenda Lee Coleman relating to the property located at concession 7, part of lot 13, and known municipally as 15217 Imperial Road be approved for the reasons set out in this report.
Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Wilson moves. And is it Councillor Glinsky seconds? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. Thank you, everyone in attendance. Regarding this application, we'll move on to the next part of the agenda as reports from departments. This evening, we go to our Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer, Mr. Boylan. You have a few reports for us this evening, starting with the Draft Water 2024 budget and user fee schedule. Over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So tonight we're discussing the 2024 water budget and with the goal of setting the water rate for next year. As is customary, I will walk through council a presentation of which summarizes the budget. So your objectives as part of this report before you tonight is to set the water rates for 2024, approve water rate funded budgeted expenditures and revenues, approve the water rate funded 2024 capital plan, and assess the financial position of the township's water services. So for context, water services are fully funded through water rates, therefore no property taxes are used to subsidize the service at all, and we have 650 connections that are paying into the service. In 2023, the township approved in principle a water rate study completed by Watson & Associates, which recommended a 5% annual increase from 2023 to 2032. Our water rate is comprised of two components, a fixed component that is households regardless of the volume of water they consume, and a volumetric rate, which is based on the amount of water they consume. Based on a 5% increase for 2024, we would be looking at a $67 per year increase, which equates to $5.58 monthly to an average household. Okay, so what does your water bill pay for? Most of it pays for the actual purchase of water. The township itself doesn't have a treatment plant, so we're purchasing water from other supply systems. Those supply systems have also increased their rates for 2024. So a lot of our budget is simply downloading the cost of those water services. On top of that, we have life cycle funding at 19% of our water rates. That relates to future infrastructure replacement of the system itself. So those two elements combined add up to 75% of our water rate. Some of the other elements includes our Aqua contract. They're the operating authority for our system. We have a contract with them that requires annual adjustments based on CPI each year. We have staffing. We have one full-time shared staff. Our primary resources are manager of water and wastewater operations. And his costs are increasing simply by like their cost of living adjustments to their salary grid. We have a 5% allotted for repairs and maintenance to the system. We have a booster station that accounts for 1% of our costs, and then the other category at 2% reflects our SCADA system, our software costs, some minor training budgets, dues and memberships, things of those nature. So our capital forecast, relatively light with the exception of 2028. So these capital recommendations are based on discussions each year with Aqua. We have a conversation about them about what the needs of the system are over a 6-year period. And they've recommended this with the exception of 2028, which I will go into. So this is a special consideration in relation to the Port Burwell Secondary Board. That is the blue line represented at the bottom of the map. That system is contemplating a major water main replacement for east of the Port Burwell Tower for 7 kilometers. So the system itself, it's very has very low population density and will not be able to fund that infrastructure directly from the board's existing reserves. So in the event that we do have to complete a full water main replacement, the cost would fall to each of the member municipalities who own the system itself. So Malahide is a 35% owner of that system, and as such, 35% of that prospective project would fall upon our rate base potentially. Now, what's being done is a condition assessment on that main with the idea of potentially reducing the scope of that project. It'd be preferable to replace certain sections of the main as opposed to the whole main itself, but there are some concerns about how it was originally installed. So we're waiting the results of the condition assessment for now before we reach out to the public to let them know about potential financial impacts, but we can't say for sure at this time what it's going to cost the municipality. For now, we're just alerting you that there's a potentially significant financial liability coming down the pipeline. So based on our existing reserve position, the reserves were basically depleted in 2022 when we did our Highway 3 water main replacement project, which with funding assistance from the province. We're looking to improve that over the next 5 years. We're estimating by 2029 with 5% rate increases contemplated in the rate study, we can reach a balance of approximately 1.5 million. Mind you, my opinion is that those reserves are insufficient, even at $1.5 million. They're not sufficient to fund contingencies, or if there's a major main replacement that the township would have to undertake itself, 1.5 million doesn't buy you a lot these days. So it is a precarious position, but all we can do is improve gradually over time. Otherwise, we would be shocking the rate base with the increases that we'd be contemplating. Going on, current reserves are able to fund approximately only 28% of future infrastructure costs. That's not particularly abnormal. There is an infrastructure funding gap in the province, and we are certainly not immune to it. Rural communities such as ours on water and wastewater systems with really low population density are going to have difficulty replacing their infrastructure into the future. But one benefit that we do find ourselves having is that the water system itself is fairly young, and those replacements won't be coming anytime soon. We're talking decades down the line. Now, that is the exception to that is the Port Burwell secondary system, which was built in the 70s. So we're starting to see it really decline in its condition as it ages. That concludes my presentation. I don't know if council has any questions.
It's from council. Not seeing any. So do we go ahead with the resolution then?
That report number FIN 23-17 titled Draft Water 2024 Budget and User Fee Schedule be received, and that the draft Malahide Water 2024 budget and the user rates for 2024 be approved, and that the municipal staff be authorized to carry out the administrative acts necessary to implement such budget and user rates as approved.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Leach moves, Deputy Mayor Widner seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. Great. Thank you, Mr. Borland. We'll move on to the draft sewer 2024 budget and user fee schedule.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Similar, we're looking to set the rates for our sewer system for 2024, approve the budgeted expenditures revenues, approve our capital work plan, and assess the financial position of our sewer services. Similar to water rates, sewer services are fully funded through their sewer rates, and no property taxes are used to subsidize the service. The system is paid for by approximately 300 users, all in Springfield. In 2023, the township approved a sewer rate study completed by Watson Associates, which recommended 3.5% annual increases from 2023 to 2032. A map is provided on page 102 of the agenda, which displays the township's sewer infrastructure. So our recommendation is in keeping with Watson's rate study for a 3.5% rate increase for 2024. The impact on residents would be $41 per year or $3.42 monthly to an average household. Our rate is purely a fixed charge, so it's regardless of the amount of water consumed because we have no way to meter our water. What does the sewer bill pay for? Life cycle funding accounts for 44% of sewer rates, which is used to fund our capital program and future infrastructure replacements. The draft 2024 budget provides for an annual transfer to reserves of $159,558, which we will estimate will be able to fund approximately 30% of the system's future life cycle replacements. 15% relates to utilities and repairs at our wastewater facilities. This includes the Springfield Pumping Station and the Ontario Police College Pumping Station, including its force main, which connects west to the town of Elmer. As the township does not have a treatment facility of its own, we connect into the town of Elmer, as you know, into their lagoon system. Based on our agreement with them, we fund a portion of the lagoon cost based on our proportionate flows. That accounts for 14% of our rate spending. Similar to our water budget, our contract with Aqua accounts for 11%. It is receiving a CPI adjustment for 2024. Staffing accounts for 7% of costs using our shared staffing resources and increases by wage cost of living adjustments each year. Repairs and maintenance of the sewer system are estimated at 7% of our sewer rate, which we're not going to adjust for 2024. And our other category includes, again, the SCADA cost, electronic monitoring of the system, and other minor costs like training for our staff. So overall, we actually cut expenditure budgets by a total of $658 from 2023 to 2024 based on a review of the sources of a 2023 surplus for sewer rates that we're projecting. So that means 100% of this year's increase relates to replacing future infrastructure. Based on conversations with Aqua, capital investments are projected to 2029 are expected to average $53,800 per year from 2024 to 2029. For 2024, we're asking for $44,000. An itemized list is provided for your consideration on page 97 of the agenda. And for reserves, going into 2024, we have $970,000 in our sewer reserve, and with a 2024 draft budget approval, we'll have nearly $1.1 million by the end of the year. Over the next 5 years, if we continue to approve rate increases, we can build our reserves up to $1.7 million by 2029. So our financial position, sufficient reserves are being held to fund contingencies. or immediate capital projects, which is good news. Future infrastructure replacements are estimated again to be 30% funded based on existing transfers to reserves. And our sewer system is in very good condition. No near-term negative outcomes are expected from underfunding reserves. The system was built in 2000, so it's still very young. Are there any questions?
Questions from member of council? Councillor Wilson.
I was just curious why there was no draw in the 2027 reserve.
There was no capital projects being contemplated that year. That was Aqua's not forecasting any significant investments to be required that year, so we're not going to be drawing from the reserve to fund it.
Any other comments or questions? Similar to the water report, I think that's very well laid out report. So that's really appreciated and makes it very, very clear and easy to understand, and also shows a prudent approach. So I think that's appreciated as well. If there are no further comments, then we have the resolution. Oh, Councillor Leach, sorry.
I had one question about wastewater treatment relating to the sand filter. So the inflow is about 5.5%, but the sand filter operating costs are billed at 21.12%. Why is that?
You've hit on a sore spot. There's something to that. We're in discussions with Elmer about that very issue. The short answer to the question is because that's what we agreed upon when we entered into the agreement a couple decades ago to get the sewer services. We don't think it's a particularly equitable arrangement, but that is how the arrangement's laid out. So.
Okay. It just seemed to be counterintuitive that we're paying for more recharge or filter capacity than we're actually using.
They had to make additional investments into their sand filter system when we came onto the sewer system in the first place. So the agreement contemplates some special provisions to reflect that.
Thank you very much.
Question, thank you. Any further comments? So we'll proceed with the resolution then. Clerk Adam?
That report number FIN 23-18 titled Draft Sewer 2024 Budget and User Fee Schedule be received, and that the 2024 Draft Sewer Budget and user rates for 2024 be approved, and that the municipal staff be authorized to carry out the administrative acts necessary to implement such budget and user rates as approved.
We have mover and seconder. Councillor Leach moves, Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. So I just want to check in at this time. It's been an hour, 20 minutes. I'm conscious we have guests who are probably waiting for a later item on the agenda. What's council's preference? You want a 5-minute break? Or do you want to continue? Your choice.
Five? Anybody else?
5 minutes? Great. Welcome back, everyone. And Councillor Lewis sends his regrets. He's not well. So we'll continue and getting back on the agenda, Mr. Borland, we're back to another report from you this evening, the 2024 interim tax levy bylaw. Over to you.
Thank you. We've entered into the routine business portion of my reports. So every year we pass a interim tax levy bylaw. And what that enables us to do is collect 50% of last year's taxes from property owners until our budget is established and final rates are approved by council. So with council's approval tonight, property owners will pay 50% of last year's taxes on their March and June installments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, Clerk Adams, can we have the resolution?
That report number FIN 23-19 entitled 2024 interim tax levy bylaw be received, and that bylaw number 2381 be given a first, second, and third reading.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Glinsky moves. Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. And one more report, Ms. Boylan, the temporary borrowing bylaw.
Another one we do every year is the temporary borrowing bylaw. What this does is delegates authority to the treasurer or myself to borrow from the bank if I need to. So I don't think it's ever been used in the history of the township, but in the event there's an emergency where I had to call the bank and get a loan, get cash flow to fund some emergency expenditures, this would enable me to do that. Otherwise, it's not something that we typically would use. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none. May I have the resolution?
That report number FIN 23-20 entitled temporary borrowing bylaw be received, and that bylaw 2382 be given a first, second, and third reading.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Cerna moves. Deputy Mayor Widner seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Boylan. We'll move on to going back to the Walker Dairy Rural Power Resiliency Project. The request for a resolution to support the IESO energy proposal. Mr. Steele.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't go into much detail on the actual proposal, as I believe Mr. Lensink has provided a thorough overview as part of his presentation. I'll perhaps just note that, staff have reviewed the proposed development and have no concerns with the proposal. Staff know that there may be additional site plan control and building permit approvals that be required as part of the process, but ultimately have no concerns with development proceeding. Also, I'd like to note, as part of the consultation process, the proponent has conducted public consultation and hosting a community consultation meeting on November 22nd. And from that, there was no concerns or comments raised. I believe that those meeting minutes are provided as part of the agenda package. And so staff have no concerns with council supporting the resolution. And that concludes the presentation. Have to take any questions from council.
Thank you. Any questions from council? I think we had a good presentation and discussion beforehand. So if there are no further comments, we'll proceed with the resolution.
Whereas the proponent is proposing to construct and operate a long-term reliability project as defined and with the characteristics outlined in Table 1 below, under the long-term request for proposals LT1 RFP issued by the Independent Electricity System Operator, that report number DS 23-33 entitled Walker Dairy Rural Power Resiliency Project request for resolution to support IESO energy proposal be received, and that the Council of the Township of Malahide supports the development, construction, and operation of the long-term reliability project on the lands known municipally as 9608 Carter Road, subject to the necessary and required site plan approval, building permit, and other approvals being obtained to the satisfaction of the township, and that this resolution's sole purpose is to enable the proponent to receive rated criteria points under the LT1 RFP or to satisfy its obligations under any awarded LT1 contract. It may not be used for any purpose of any other form of approval in relation to the proposal or long-term reliability project or for any other purpose. Rated criteria points will be used to rank the proponent's proposal in relation to other proposals received by the IESO under the LT1 RFP.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Cerna moves. Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. All the best with the next steps in the project. And thank you for being here this evening. Thank you, Mr. Steele, as well. Next on the agenda we have the municipal law enforcement policy. I think Mr. Miller is with us, at least on Zoom. Welcome, Mr. Miller. And so tonight, the idea is this is a new policy that we're looking to put in place. So as it is good practice, we don't need to pass this evening. It's good to just receive it, discuss it, take the time to circulate it with the public, and then we can come back at a later date to actually approve. So for discussion purposes this evening, over to you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, members of council. Thank you for having me today. Through you, Madam Mayor, the work related to municipal law enforcement can be complex at times, given the regulatory environment that by law enforcement officers are required to operate within. Municipal law enforcement work is governed by relevant common law, the Ontario Evidence Act, Municipal Act, Ontario Building Code, Police Services Act, and Canada Evidence Act, just to name a few pieces of legislation. The attached municipal law enforcement policy is intended to provide a council-approved framework to govern how municipal law enforcement services are provided within the Township of Malahide. The overall intent is to provide fair, efficient, and effective municipal law enforcement service with a strong emphasis on voluntary compliance through education, collaboration, and enforcement if necessary. It contains considerations related to complaint procedures, investigation and enforcement procedures, how we deal with frivolous or vexatious complaints, council involvement in bylaw enforcement, administrative oversight and direction of bylaw enforcement matters, annual reporting, and the application of the Municipal and Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacy Act. It's important to note that if council does opt to approve the policy, and something contained within the policy does not work, staff can always be directed to come forward with proposed amendments or a new policy, depending on what council would like. Thank you. Subject to any questions you may have.
Thank you for that. So again, I'll open it up for discussions. This is a time to seek clarification or have suggestions. I see Councillor Glinsky.
Mayor Giguère, I read that quite carefully, and there are some things in there that have to be changed because in this present format, present form, and the present language, there is no way that I could support it either now or later. So the things that concern me is, number one, there's too much paperwork. Number two, too many controls on council, and you don't want to confer with council other than the person that made the complaint. I thought we were a team, but that doesn't sound like a team effort when everybody's kept in the dark except the one person that might have made the concern. Rather than saying anything else, I think I'll leave it at that, and we'll see if it comes back in a more appropriate format to my way of looking at things. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, do you wish to comment on the involvement of council, and I don't know if Councillor Glinsky, you want to specify what would be your expectation? What would you like to see?
What I'd like to see is like we do with all the other people in the township office. When we get a complaint, we go to you, and you look after it as best you can, if you can, and we're notified, or we're just that either we were successful in whatever we were trying to do, or whether it was impossible to do whatever we were planning on doing. So I'd like some kind of feedback as opposed to just saying, well, tough. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Those provisions are not purposely intended to keep members of council in the dark. Certainly, there's a reporting relationship from the bylaw enforcement officer up through the chief building official and ultimately the CAO. The provisions therein are purposely intended to insulate members of council from becoming involved and becoming a subpoenable witness in a potential law enforcement matter. Not intending to keep members of council in the dark, specifically related to bylaw enforcement matters.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wilson?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it was like, for me, it's that Chester and I were talking about this afternoon. It's that section 3, part 3. Shall not divulge to any member of council, non-essential staff, public meter, unless ordered by a court. Well, it's like it just seems that the wording in it is so tight that can we talk about it in council? That's the part that it's just depending on how that's interpreted, it could be very restrictive.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. There is a provision related to council involvement that indicates there can be direct discussion in camera only. The specific provisions precluding disclosure of information are intended to dissuade any kind of breaches of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, as well as stated to prevent members of council from becoming directly involved as a subpoenable witness in a matter or a potential litigation matter flowing from a bylaw enforcement issue. I can say that the reporting relationship, certainly there can be discussions and updates provided by the CAO in camera, and that would certainly be appropriate, particularly where there's a relevant council decision that has to be made. Certainly zoning and things like that can play in. But that there is a provision, I believe it's in section 6, subsection 1, that allows for discussion related to a municipal law enforcement officer, municipal law enforcement matter to occur in camera, so as to ensure the provisions of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection Privacy Act are adhered to.
If I may add to that.
Mr. Diaz?
I think also with section 3.3, I think a concern that regularly pops up with bylaw enforcement is complainants. Usually when they do make a complaint, there is some apprehension and nervousness as to, well, now, will everyone know about this? Will everyone know it's me? And will I get any sort of repercussion because I've now made a complaint? So section 3.3 ensures that the complainant shall remain in strict confidence, and that allows there to be a level of trust when someone does want to make a complaint and not have it publicly divulged to everyone that they were the one making that complaint. And a lot of times that's what they look at. So in terms of a situation where, let's just say, we find out that there is a property owner that is violating a bylaw, council will certainly be able to find that information, especially if that issue escalates. It's really the complainant who may have initiated it, which would be kept under strict confidence.
Thank you for that. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. There's also provisions like a high level rather than specific detail can be provided, as it would not breach the provisions of the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection Privacy Act. There's provisions related to reporting, which I am preparing to do. I've had discussions with Mr. Diaz about annual reporting related to bylaw enforcement activities at a high level within the municipality, and we will be coming forward with that in 2024 for information for council.
Any further comments, questions? Deputy Mayor Widner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess I have a couple of questions. Is a council member still going to be able to make a complaint? I don't know the way I read this. I presume we still could. We have been before. And the information, all I would ever want, has the site been visited? And is there progress being made? And that's probably all I'd ever want to know. I don't want to know the details, but is a council member still able to make a complaint because there's some citizens that just won't do it? But if we see something or get enough calls, I think we should still have the right to do that. So thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, a council member would be able to make a complaint related to a bylaw enforcement matter. The provisions related to specific disclosure of like where case files are at and things like that. But we wouldn't be providing any specific updates. However, I do when I'm typically going to action a complaint, I will notify the complainant that I've received a complaint. I am taking action, and then at the conclusion of the complaint, I will typically notify the complainant that the matter is considered successfully resolved and compliance achieved from my perspective.
Thank you.
Councillor Glinsky, did I see your hand earlier? Did you have a further question or comment?
Well, yes and no. But since I've got the mic, I might as well say something. And and what I'm going to say is fine and dandy to sit back and not respond. But if that happens, it doesn't die there. It goes from one counselor to another. I've had people come to me with the complaint that they made and nobody acted on. And when I inquired about it, that was the case. And we had to put our heads together and work with this. Like I said before, we're a team. We work together. We don't work as an island unto itself. Well, that's all I can say at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I agree, and I prefer to work collaboratively as well. The provisions in the policy are more specific to very specific details that are sensitive as it relates to an investigation, and may jeopardize the integrity of an investigation. So as I said, municipal law enforcement is governed by common law, the Privacy Act, as well as the Ontario Evidence Act, and disclosure of relevant information related to an investigation can fundamentally affect the municipality's success should a court action result. So it's not saying that that I'm not going to disclose any information whatsoever. I'm not going to have any discussions. We can have high level discussions, but it's more as it relates to the integral details of an investigation or of a complaint or complainant information.
Mr. Diaz and then Deputy Mayor Widmer.
I think how this was done successfully in the past was especially when there were any sort of bylaw reports that are brought up to council where members of council will be able to see all the bylaw investigations that the bylaw officer has done, and then be able to particularly identify any ones of interest that we may be able to go into more discussions with in closed session. So that should allow council to have full ability to explore any of these particular violations and how the investigation unfolded and what conclusions were reached. So that way council will be in the full know of how the enforcement process works.
Thank you for that. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I feel now with working with Steve, we have gone leaps and bounds ahead of where we were before. I'm very satisfied. There's been a lot of complaints that have been visited. There's a lot of things been done. So I think we're on the right path, and some of the answers we've gotten tonight, I think, are very comforting. So let's move on from there. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I agree. This is a great discussion, and we're making great progress in this area. It's been a priority that we've been wanting to address, and now we're adding some structure and some transparency and some consistency in how we're going to do bylaw enforcement. As Mr. Miller indicated earlier, this can be a learn and adjust process. So first off, right now we have at least a couple weeks to think about it. I encourage you, if you have further questions, if you want to discuss the interpretation of some of what is being proposed, that's all, that's what we're doing tonight is just, you know, taking the time to hear the questions, digest, and come back to before we actually approve. So yeah, so if there are any specifics that you would like Mr. Miller to address and perhaps in a revised version, please, I encourage you to contact him and have further discussion. But yeah, I think tonight, for now, it sounds like we're, at least the intent is to achieve a balance between how much information can be shared, how much, you know, council can fulfill its duty of managing risk and be properly informed to do so. So I think that's a fair first attempt. And but we won't know fully until we try it. Any further questions or comments? Okay, so may I have the resolution, Clerk Adams, to receive it for this evening?
The report number BL 23-02 titled Municipal Law Enforcement Policy be received, and that the draft municipal law enforcement policy be reviewed and considered for approval at the next council meeting.
Thank you. Mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Widner moves, Councillor Leach second. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. Great work.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, members of council.
Next on the agenda, we have reports of committees and outside boards. So there were a few from Long Point Region Conservation Authority, the budget, the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority budget, Elgin Group Police Services Board, the Grand River Conservation Authority nomination. We can we have 4 resolutions that we can consider at once, but I'll entertain questions or comments on any of the reports provided. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I don't know how this falls in the progress and correspondence. We have something from the Police Services Board, and I do intend to speak to that. I don't know if this is the time to speak to it, or is this just, you had a general overall?
Yeah, just the next section. So for now, in this resolution, we would be just receiving the minutes of the Elgin Group Police Services Board. And then in the next section, we'll do correspondence.
That's fine. I move we
Councillor
accept-
Wilson? Yep. Did I see your hand? Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, there was just, it was along with the police services stuff. And it was, yeah, I think it was basically terms on the board. And it says, I forget the exact wording. I'm trying to look through hundreds of pages to find it, but it was something like, I think it was the duration of your thing is term of council. Well, there's quite a few names on there that are no longer in council that are on the board still. So I wasn't sure exactly how that worked. I was just, when I saw the term of council, and then it's some folks that aren't on council anymore, I was sort of wondering how they're still on the board, but I'm sure there's other things that I might not know about on that end.
And so are you referring to maybe the committee appointments bylaw? That's a little bit further. Or was that in the minutes of the Police Services Board? Just want
I
to make
believe
sure.
it's been the Police Services Board. I'm, you know, scrolling through here a little madly trying to find the exact wording, but I was just sort of surprised by the wording, and then that was
Well,
all.
what I can suggest, we do, I believe, Clerk Adams, we do have to do and receive each report separately. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, so we'll start with Long Point Region Conservation Authority and Kettle Creek, and maybe they'll buy you time to find something on the Police Services Board. I just want to make sure we capture it. So let's
That
start
the
with the first resolution. Go ahead.
That the correspondence received from the Long Point Region Conservation Authority dated November 9th, 2023 regarding the 2024 draft LPRCA budget be received, and that the draft 2024 LPRCA budget be referred to the 2024 budget deliberations.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach moves, Counselor Cerna seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Next resolution.
That the correspondence received from the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority dated November 16th, 2023 regarding the 2024 municipal apportionment and budget be received, and that the draft 2024 KCCA municipal apportionment and budget be referred to the 2024 budget delivery.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Glinski moves, Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. And we're back to the minutes from the Elgin Group Police Services Board. Counselor Wilson, did you want to, was there something in those minutes specifically you wanted to comment on?
No, it's okay. I can't find it, so.
We can follow up just to make sure at another time, but we'll proceed with the resolution if there are no further comments or questions.
That the minutes of the Elgin Group Police Services Board of September 20th, 2023 be received for.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner moves, Counselor Cerna seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Next is the nomination for the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee. Questions or comments on that one? Seeing none, we have the resolution.
That Malahide Council supports the nomination of Alex Piggott, Manager of Environmental Services at the Municipality of Central Elgin, as municipal representative for Group 7 on the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Glinski moves. Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? That's carried. We'll now move to correspondence. There are 9 items, and I believe Deputy Mayor Widner, you wanted to speak to the letter from the Police Services Board. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This letter also presented at our county council, as you were aware. There was a really lively discussion about it, and I think it's high time it was brought out. We had an excellent discussion. Police are not allowed in our schools. They haven't been allowed in for a couple of years. I guess it all relates back to something that happened in the States, but I don't understand why that happens in the States. It has to affect us. But like I've got firsthand knowledge, I've got relatives in the school system. And the amount of violence occurring in the schools now is totally unacceptable. And a majority of that affects women. I know in my cases, it's absolutely ridiculous, but some staff are now having to wear protective clothing, protective vests, because there's students walking around with knives and shanks and all kinds of things. Teachers are being punched. You know, firsthand, they're punching teachers out. There seems to be no way to stop this, which is, I don't understand. When I went to school, it was more the teachers were the violent than the students, but we didn't get killed. But there's no discipline being taken against any of this violence, and that really bothers me. Even some classrooms are being destroyed, and they just sit there and let them be destroyed, and just there's nothing to do to stop it. Workplace health and safety is supposed to be treated with the utmost importance, and it's not. It's definitely not being. Thames Valley's just falling down on their face, and it's disgusting the way they're treating these teachers and the students. Well, I would like to see a letter. I know the county's sending something, but I'd like to see Malahide Township send one to Thames Valley supporting the reinstatement of police in the schools. And hopefully we can maybe get some resolution to this, because I know it around the county table, it's high time something's done. The ratepayers who are paying the school taxes aren't getting the value for their dollar, and they don't seem to have any say. So the board either needs to we have a wake-up call. Maybe we'll have to go visit them sometime like it did with the school system, but That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Counselor Cerna?
Yeah, I just want to agree with Counselor, or sorry, Deputy Mayor. Don't need to be told twice. I just want to agree with Deputy Mayor Widner. It all boils down to discipline, and there isn't any. And a teacher is not allowed to touch a student because all of a sudden it's assault. They can't do anything. Their hands are tied, and the kid can get away with murder, really. And it's very deplorable what goes on and what they can get away with, and teachers can't do a damn thing about it. So I agree with you. You need, like, there's schools in the States that they have those scanners or whatever the hell they call them for guns and stuff, because kids can do what they want. And when you listen to them talk, like, I thought I was bad, but these kids put me to shame. They put a sailor to shame. Every other word is something else. And there's no respect, there's no discipline, there's nothing. I watch these kids walk down the sidewalk, and I'm embarrassed for them, and that takes a lot. So yeah, something's got to change. I agree with you 1,000%. Thank you.
So is there general consensus on then the township issuing its own letters to the school board, generally speaking?
Show of hands.
Yeah, no, I can actually see the nods. That's good. Clerk Adams? Yeah, first off, are there any other comments on any other pieces of correspondence? See none. Clerk Adams, do you have a resolution that would, oh, sorry, Councillor Leach?
I would like to support the Township of Lake of Bays, because while we have an excellent local newspaper, not every community does, unfortunately.
Agreed. Okay, so if there's nothing else, Clerk Adams, do you have a resolution that would allow us to receive and also acknowledge the direction to staff to issue a letter?
That correspondence item number 6 be supported, and that correspondence item number 3 be supported, and that Malahide staff on behalf of Malahide Council send correspondence to Thames Valley District School Board in relation to the School Resource Officer Program, and that the remaining items be noted and filed.
Thank you. We have a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner moves. Councillor Glinski seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Any other business? Seeing none, or do we consider the data sharing and services agreement as in other business? Mr. Borland, did you have any question on that agreement, or I'll start with Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I had a discussion with Nathan earlier on today, and we touched on it with the Elgin County planners, trying to get a planner for the county. The Abe Giesberg has spent millions and millions of dollars trying to get that business up and running, and it's at a standstill over getting permits. Now, we don't have our own planner. Everything's done through consultants. And, we're hoping for some quicker answers out of stuff. But when someone is putting up that much money and has so many people that live in the township employed, there's got to be a way of streamlining what's going on, because it has been delay in getting this thing up and built. Now, some of it is, I guess sort of understandable. There's other parts to it that it's, well, he is just beyond frustrated because he can't get any answers. It's like, when's this gonna get approved? Is it gonna be next week, next month, next year? It's, we're hoping for some answers here shortly, and hopefully that's coming. But, when it's, I guess I don't want to single out, oh, if it's a big project, then that gets priority. But we're trying to encourage industrial and commercial development to better our tax base. And when someone is having so many headaches, it doesn't really say to other people, hey, maybe there's a place I should go and do my industrial and commercial stuff. It'll take you 2 years to do a 1-year project, but hey, forget about it. It'll just be tens of thousands of dollars a month in delays. So if we can get on board with the county planner, as opposed to what we have, and I realize we've been trying to get a planner, but it's, 2 attempts at it with the shared stuff, and it didn't come to fruition. So if there's stuff coming in from the county, I think we'd best get on it.
Sir Diaz.
Yes, this has certainly been brought forward, I think, by a number of businesses that have voiced some concerns, right, with the development services and are looking for, again, better customer service. And with that aspect, I am looking towards putting some solutions into the 2024 budget to specifically dedicate resources to address that and make sure that we do have a method of supporting businesses, especially one such as this that are providing a significant benefit to the community and residents, and make sure that importance and significance is captured. So that will be put forward in January in terms of budget reports, in terms of that sort of implementation. In the short term, I've reached out to this business owner and also with our consultants to ensure that we can get this matter resolved and progressed as soon as possible.
Excellent. Thank you.
You. Anything else, Deputy Mayor Woodner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Nice presentation we had tonight about the county taking over the planning. I think that's the way to go. I think the sooner the Malahide Township maybe tells the county, we think it's a great idea, let's get the rest on board. We're just stalling and waiting, and I'm getting tired of that. So let's put our name out there and say, yeah, we're willing to entertain it, because it's paid for by the total levy, which is a great thing. We're gonna have a good mix of planners. But did the county not do this years ago? Do you remember? Or maybe that's for your time, but I thought we used to do it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I think it'd be a great thing, especially with all the new development that's gonna be in that area. They're gonna be busy enough. So I think as soon as Malahide can tell the county, I know we can do that, but we should do it officially. Let's get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Cerna?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm on the Elmer Cemetery Board, and we tried to build a building, and it was over a year before we ever got there. And Nathan can back me up on this. I leaned on him quite a bit. We just got the permit, I think, 2 weeks ago, and it was held up because they spelled cemetery wrong. Like, Jesus, give me a break. And we 2 weeks because you had a spelling mistake. So we gotta do something different. And I have to thank you, Nathan, for helping us along, because once the building got going, it's doesn't take long. A little story to tell you, though. Kind of funny if I got a minute. I was driving out to the farm and I see this big backhoe there and they're starting to finally dig the hole. And Roland Hill, who's the chairman, is out there watching it, and I reeled in there and I stopped the truck and I stopped beside Roland. I said, Roland, I said, you're making a big mistake here. And he said, what's that? I said, you're burying Mum in Cortland, not here. Thanks.
Councillor Serna. And thank you to Mr. Diaz as well. This is another area like bylaw enforcement. We have identified there's room for improvement. It has been prioritized, as you know, even through the strategic plan. So I think it's very high on the list of things to address very soon. So thank you for that. I think we can expect some progress shortly. Okay, so I'll loop back to another business. We do have the agreement for us to approve the data sharing and services agreement. Any comments or questions? I believe Mr. Boylan can address any questions, or Mr. Diaz. Go ahead.
This is again regarding MPAC's products and main user interface that we utilize. So we utilize Municipal Connect in order to get data on our again any of our properties, the assessed data, what buildings are there on there, and really what this is a data sharing services agreement that they're bringing forward just to clarify how that product is to be used. Straightforward and really there's not much discretion with regard to you know, not using it. We'll have to enter into this in order for us to get our necessary products.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, then can I have the resolution? Clerk Adams.
That the information received from MPAC regarding the new data sharing and services agreement be received for information, and that council delegate authority to staff to enter into this agreement with MPAC for the data sharing and services agreement effective January 1st, 2024 for a 4-year period.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Serna moves. Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? Carried. Next, we move to bylaws. The first is the Bennett Coleman rezoning. I have the resolution, please.
We can actually do them all together.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that the following bylaws be considered read a first, second, and third reading and properly signed and sealed. Bylaw number 2378, Bennett Coleman rezoning. Bylaw number 2377, Versnick rezoning. And bylaw number 2380, Community Grant Committee, appointment of committee members.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Serna moves. Deputy Mayor Widner seconds. Any questions or comments on the bylaws? Deputy Mayor Widner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just want to clarify the lady that was up at the podium. Did she get an answer to satisfy her? I think there was a concern her property was going to change. Was it clearly demonstrated that it's not going to, I presume?
Any comments from staff or any follow-ups required or suggested?
I think you know, those are concerns that neighbors would have, but with regard to it from planning considerations, when it comes to land value, I think with regard to this sort of zoning change, there shouldn't be that sort of impact. So,
But her own zoning won't change there, right?
no.
So I think that was her question, so that's all we could.
Yeah, if I may, she also was talking with Carolyn from the county. She got her information, and I think she was given that assurance that this was not an actual zone change to her property. And I think that was part of the concern that that individual had. So,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for double checking that. Any further comments? So we do have a mover and seconders, everyone in favor. And that's carried. We can move to confirmatory bylaw.
The bylaw number 2379 being a confirmatory bylaw be given first, second, and third reading and properly signed and sealed.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Leach moves, Councillor Cerna seconds, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we're ready for adjournment.
That council adjourn its meeting at 9:42 PM to meet again on December 21st, 2023 at 7:30.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor move, Deputy Mayor Winder moves. We have a seconder, Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to join you virtually, and we will see you next time. Have a